Dillian, the body snatcher right here. It's a champ. Big up to Sporting Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
Now, there's so many people saying that Anthony Joshua should just offer Deontay Wilder a contract. Now, bearing in mind, Wilder is demanding 40%. Now, originally he said 50-50 or no fight. Now he's saying 40%, but you have to take the same in the rematch. Now, bearing in mind, even in the rematch, Anthony Joshua would still be technically the A side. He's the one bringing the money. Currently, Deontay Wilder isn't even selling out in 19,000 arena in Brooklyn. He's filling it with 14,000, with a great number of those were giveaways, as we all know. So there's a whole gulf in difference. So I was thinking about, well, why is it that Joshua doesn't just offer him a percentage deal? Now, of course, they don't know quite how much money this event is going to cost. Team Wilder and a lot of his fans seem to think that by offering him $18 million is lowballing him, as it's a $100 million fight. Now, Anthony Joshua has already come out and said, well, if you really believe that it's a $100 million fight, no problem. Give me 60 million. Better still, give me 50 million. So you get 50-50 then. So technically, he is offering him a percentage. In fact, he's not just agreeing to 60-40. He's saying, if it's a $100 million fight, 50-50. You give me 50 million up front, you keep the rest. If it does 100 million, then you're quids in. If it does 150 million, you're even more quids in, right? So he kind of is offering him a percentage. But anyway, there may be some kind of reasons. I mean, if Team AJ, Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, if they are playing a little bit hardball, there could be a number of reasons behind it. And one of them is, of course, you never really start off a negotiation with a take it or leave it offer. Now, allegedly, that's what they did, but I haven't heard anything from Joshua or Eddie Hearn to say, yes, that is 100% what it is. If they don't sign it, the fight don't happen. I've yet to hear that from them. But even so, 18 million is a hell of a lot of money, considering that Deontay Wilder is a $2.1 million fighter at best, being that's his highest payday, which was against his most dangerous opponent in Luis Ortiz, which is his 40th fight. But of course, AJ, Matchroom, Eddie Hearn, and, you know, all Anthony Joshua's entourage, they want to try and get the best deal for Joshua, as in maximise his revenue. Of course they do. But ultimately, it is about getting undisputed, and as Anthony Joshua's always said, we've always been paying people over the top, way more than what they're worth. And 18 million is way more than what Deontay Wilder's worth, because he's only bringing one belt to the party, right? Whereas Joseph Parker was only bringing one belt to the party, but Anthony Joshua only had two. He had the IBO as well, but for the sake of this video, we're not going to include that. So it was 2 belts versus 1. Plus for the fact Anthony Joshua was the cash cow, right? That's the deal they struck. Joseph Parker got 33%. So it's 2-1, okay? So he got a third. Then he beat Joseph Parker. He gets that title, okay? And then also now he has 3 of the 4 belts. So in other words, he's got 75% of undisputed right now, yes? So really you could say, well, Wilder 25%. You could argue that one, but there's no way he should get more than Parker. No way in hell. And we'll kind of go through some bits that I believe is some of the reasons why, if Joshua and Eddie Hearn are playing hardball, outside of the fact that they're trying to maximise their own revenue, because they are the ones who's bringing the eyes to the event and, of course, financing it, and ultimately they are the ones bringing in the cash, right? Whereas Team Wilder won't be. All he's got to do is do his usual training, turn up for the fight, and all that kind of thing. So if you look at some of the things that Wilder has said in the past, it kind of makes you wonder, could this potentially be the reasons why Anthony Joshua might be playing hardball? Now, I don't blame him for playing hardball. I would quite simply offered him 10 million and said, right, that is way more than what you're worth. That's 5 times more than your highest payday. Take it or leave it. You've got 24 hours to decide. If you don't sign it, right, see you later. I'll go fight my mandatory and make 20+ million anyway against Povetkin. So that's what I would do. But Joshua is being a bit more lenient than what I would be. I'll be a hell of a lot more harsh. But if you look at some of Wilder's statements, now, if you'll remember when Deontay Wilder, he was supposed to take on Andre Wawrzyk. You remember that? Wawrzyk, who no guy ever heard of, right? But ultimately, Wojcik, he failed a PED test and he ended up taking Gerald Washington. Now, Deontay Wilder's reason for Gerald Washington was because he was polite to him when he met him. He shook his hand and he was very nice. The complete opposite to what Deontay Wilder is being towards Anthony Joshua. Being that Deontay Wilder has said that Anthony Joshua is a fake paper champion. Okay, in other words, he beat Charles Martin, who got that belt when it was vacated, which was the IBF title. It was vacated because Tyson Fury had it stripped for agreeing to rematch Vladimir Klitschko rather than take on Glasgow. So Tyson Fury's belt got stripped, and this is the belt that he's talking about, as in Anthony Joshua never beat Tyson Fury, although Tyson Fury never competed again. But if you look at Deontay Wilder's title, he won a belt from Bermane Stiverne. Bermane Stiverne won that title by beating a guy that he'd already beaten previously for, guess what, a vacated belt by Vitaly Klitschko. Exactly the same scenario. But either way, he called Anthony Joshua a paper champion. The IBF is not a legitimate win, is what he's saying. Now, also, added to that, Charles Martin, when he fought Anthony Joshua, guess what? He was given a flat fee of $7 million. A flat fee. No percentage, flat fee. Okay, so this isn't the first time that Joshua has offered a flat fee. And also, Wilder, okay, he was over here watching Joshua take on Vladimir Klitschko in a superb fight. He was there doing a commentary for Sky Sports and did a very good job, and in the punditry as well. You know, he was polite and he come across and he said some very logical, good things. But of course, he then went back to Alabama and then, you know, he managed to log back into his social media accounts and then started chastising Anthony Joshua from across the ocean, which is what he always does, and saying that he shouldn't have fought for the WBA title because, again, it was Tyson Fury's belt. It was a vacant belt, so he never beat a champion to get it, even though he beat the previous holder in Vladimir Klitschko, right? So, again, he called him a fake paper champion. And, of course, against Joseph Parker, he was calling him a fake champion because, again, guess what? That belt was vacated by Tyson Fury, the WBO. Joseph Parker then beats Andy Ruiz for the vacant title, then does a mandatory. It was supposed to have been David Haye. Then it got switched to Hughie Fury when David Haye decided to go for Tony Bellew. And then Hughie Fury pulled out of the fight, which was supposed to be in New Zealand. And Parker ended up taking Kojanu as a farewell to his New Zealand fans, but still got mandated to fight Hughie Fury next, as in he wasn't allowed to unify or anything. So he got rid of his mandatory and then took on Anthony Joshua for a unification fight. The unification that Deontay Wilder has never done in his career, right? Bearing in mind, he's never once stepped up in his entire 40-fight career. 10 years and saying, well, nobody was really giving me the opportunity. I wanted the fights, but, you know, they wouldn't give it to me because there's only Vladimir Klitschko, there's only Vitaly Klitschko. But yet people who had far less fights than him, like Derek Chisora, managed to get a title shot against Vitaly Klitschko. Manuel Charr, that nobody ever heard of before he had a fight with Vitaly Klitschko. Brian Jennings had a fight with Vladimir Klitschko. So did Tony Thompson. So did Pianetta. So there's so many people, but yet Wilder couldn't. But anyway, so that's pretty much what Wilder was getting at, that Anthony Joshua paper champion, because he never beat Tyson Fury. But yeah, he considers himself a real champion because the WBC title. Yet the WBC title hasn't been defended against anybody of any kind of worthiness since Vitaly Klitschko had it. He's been treating that belt with nothing but disrespect. The historical acclaim for the WBC title has been diminished because of him. And for the fact when he won the title in his 33rd fight, Shady Finkel, his manager, said that Deontay Wilder's not ready for the step-up fights. He's still a baby, he's still a prospect. 33 fights, a baby and a prospect. He needs time to grow and then maybe look at unification. Yeah, everybody seems to think that Anthony Joshua should have won his IBF title. He then defended it twice against Dominic Brazil and Eric Molina. Of course, Eric Molina is a former opponent of Deontay Wilder, and he got rid of him in much quicker fashion. But then he had unification against Vladimir Klitschko, then he did his mandatory against Carlos Takam, then unification against Parker, and people say, well, unify again. So Josh has been collecting the belts one after the other, but yet Deontay Wilder wasn't ready. 33 fights, but that's all in the past, right? That's not important. It's about now, is what they say. So anyway, Wilder calls him a fake champion. He's also accused Anthony Joshua of being on steroids. Now, he did say, I don't know whether he's still doing it, but at some point he definitely 100% has. I'm confident, and people I know have told me that Anthony Joshua has been juicing, and start calling him Juicy J, and plus many other insults, right? So again, he's accusing him of illegal behaviour, is what he's done. Bearing in mind that Joshua was going through the Olympic testing program when he won the Olympic gold. Yes, he won the Olympic gold. Deontay Wilder won bronze in arguably the worst division of Olympic history for heavyweight, in the worst division, and he couldn't even get silver. He got bronze. But anyway, he still got a medal, I suppose. Hence the reason why it's called Bronze Bomber. So he accuses Anthony Joshua of steroids. Very, very harsh. Now, Parker did do that, of course, but then Parker retracted it. And Wilder said that the UK is a home of racists. This is where racism started, was in the UK. And everybody in here would turn their back on Anthony Joshua as soon as he lost in favour of a white guy. And it only takes one little something for British people to turn back to their natural ways of being racist. So again, he's insulting an entire nation of calling him racist. Now, Wilder uses the race card quite a lot. He's been using it for his own career, that, you know, he's a black man, which is why he hasn't been progressing. But yeah, okay, then I guess that Floyd Mayweather, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, Evander Holyfield, you name it, were all white guys, right? But yeah, they managed to do it before social media, before, you know, people really had to look at their TVs or buy newspapers to find out who these people were. But yeah, here we are in a digital age of social media, internet, everything's at their fingertips. Yet Deontay Wilder is not known as much as what he should be. He's starting to get known now because he's been using Anthony Joshua's name. So anyway, UK is the home of racists. So should he really be welcome to the UK after that? Anthony Joshua is very pro-British. He's very proud to be British, and of course with his Nigerian heritage as well. But, you know, he boxes and promotes and does everything for the United Kingdom. So to insult the United Kingdom, Anthony Joshua would take great umbrage towards that. So there could be that one. Also, he's called, keeping with the same kind of racial comments that Wilder throws out a lot of, and he does it a lot. But he called Anthony Joshua a slave to the white man, Eddie Hearn, because Eddie Hearn is milking him for all he's worth. Yet Anthony Joshua is making, what, 15, 20 million per fight. I'm not too sure who's milking who, to be honest. I mean, it's Eddie Hearn that's promoting Anthony Joshua. It's Eddie Hearn that is doing all these things. It's Eddie Hearn that is making Anthony Joshua a star. Not just Eddie Hearn. I mean, of course, Anthony Joshua is doing a great chunk of this himself. You know, he has to go in there and perform, of course, and how he speaks and comes across to the public. And of course, Sky Sports and his own management team and all these kind of things. There's many different factors, but to call Eddie Hearn the white slave master is one hell of an insult to Anthony Joshua. He's a proud black man. Okay, so to call him that, that's really got to upset him. It really has. So Wilder's been nothing but disrespectful. And of course, he said that Anthony Joshua has had it easy his entire career. Anthony Joshua's had it easy. Anthony Joshua won gold medal. Yes, that gave him a bit of a leg up to going into the pro ranks. Of course it did. Much like it done with Audley Harrison when he won a medal. Amir Khan when he won a medal. All British fighters who won medals, they all get like a little bit of a head start, like David Price did that, of course, Lennox Lewis in the past, and so on and so on. So of course he had the same opportunity that everybody else has. And yes, he was signed up by a top promotional team. Eddie Hearn, his biggest successes were probably for, what, Carl Froch maybe? So he was already a little bit ahead of the game, as in Eddie Hearn was just starting to come into his own. And, you know, he chose Eddie Hearn to promote him. And not only that, he's re-signing. So again, being the slave to Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua can't really feel hard done by. Now, I'm not saying that Eddie Hearn isn't making decent money out of it. With all the money that Anthony Joshua is making, you can pretty much guarantee that Eddie Hearn is probably earning more per Joshua fight than what Wilder's making in his fights, right? You can pretty much guarantee that. So that's really got to upset Wilder. Maybe that's why he's been saying it. But to say Anthony Joshua's had it easy, Anthony Joshua had to go in there and beat people. He stepped up very, very quickly. He was taking on undefeated fighters from early parts of his career. other prospects like Gary Cornish, Dillian White. You see, he did all that. He was become British champion. Okay, and you don't have to be particularly great to become British champion. I'm not saying you do, but he still had to do it. And he skipped the whole learning process of becoming European champion and progressing when he was offered a fight with Charles Martin. Yes, he was offered to fight. He didn't offer Charles Martin. Charles Martin had just won the IBF belt. And of course, Anthony Joshua said, okay, let's do it then, against an undefeated Charles Martin, southpaw. Nobody really knew too much about him, and it was one hell of a risk. I remember a lot of people picking Charles Martin to potentially beat Joshua because it was too early for him, but he did that. Bearing in mind, Charles Martin is part of Al Haymon's team, right? Wilder is also part of Al Haymon's team, so they could have got that fight. They could have unified, but Al Haymon allowed it to go, or maybe Deontay Wilder wasn't confident in fighting Charles Martin. Who knows what it was, okay? But either way, Anthony Joshua stepped up on his 15th fight to become world champion. People like Lennox Lewis were saying it's too early. But, you know, even if he beat Charles Martin, it's too early because he's going to have a big target on his back. And he's been successful ever since. You know, he took on undefeated, again, another American, undefeated, another undefeated guy. Dominic Brazil, very, very tough. Went life and death with Amir Mansour and a couple of others. And again, some people were picking Dominic Brazil to wipe the floor with Joshua. I remember this very clearly. And it was one hell of a test. Ultimately, Joshua come out on top. Dominic Brazil, much like Charles Martin, became a bum overnight because Joshua beat him. Now, this is what the bums come out of America, because they were saying, well, you know, these guys went over there to represent us in America, but ended up getting flattened, so therefore they're bums straight overnight. And of course Tyson Fury fans as well were doing that, no doubt about it. But yet Wilder has had how many fights? 40 fights. Never once stepped up. He didn't fight a top 100 opponent until his 31st fight. That's how easy he's had it. And since then, he's never fought a top 10 opponent until his 40th fight in Luis Ortiz. But really, in reality, who is it that Luis Ortiz has beat? What is it that Luis Ortiz has done to become the boogeyman, as people call him? His last fight, Daniel Marks, before then Dave Allen, and before that Malik Scott. Malik Scott, who laid down when he fought Wilder in his 31st fight, when he got hit on the gloves. Hit on the gloves and went down like he'd been kicked in the plums. Okay, so Wilder's had it easy. He's been protected by the WBC. He's been allowed to not have mandatory for 3 years. Okay, Povetkin, that wasn't really his fault, but still. He didn't have a mandatory until 3 years in, and you don't just got rid of that in the fight before Luis Ortiz in his 39th fight against Bermane Stiverne, who should not have been there anyway. So again, talk about protection. That's him all over. But again, carrying on from Brazil, okay, he did take on Molina, but he was trying to take on Vladimir Klitschko. Vladimir Klitschko got injured in training and couldn't go through with it, so he took Eric Molina to have like a stay busy fight, and then ultimately fought Vladimir Klitschko after then. Vladimir Klitschko, a reigning 10-year unified heavyweight champion, dominated the division for 10 years. Yes, he lost his last fight against Tyson Fury. Everybody has an off night, or it could be that Tyson Fury was just so much better than him. But who could argue that the Vladimir Klitschko that turned up against Joshua was a shot Vladimir Klitschko? You can't say that, can you? And then, of course, he took on his mandatory. It was supposed to have been Pulev. Pulev ranked right the way across all the board. In all sanctioning bodies, ranked top 5. Right the way across. Pulev pulled out the fight. Okay, and then Carlos Takam, last-minute replacement. And so he dealt with his IBF mandatory. And then, of course, he unified against Joseph Parker. Again, another undefeated fighter. Young and a champion. Something that Deontay Wilder has never done. So to call Anthony Joshua's career an easy pass, everything handed to him, on what planet is it handed to him? Okay, the belts, you could argue that what he shouldn't have went after the belts because Tyson Fury vacated and got stripped of one. So what he shouldn't have done that? No. Okay, so by that logic, Wilder shouldn't have either. Okay, why didn't he fight Vitaly Klitschko? Why did he wait for Vitaly Klitschko to retire? Why is it when he won the belt from Bermane Stiverne, who won that vacant belt against a guy that he'd already beaten, Chris Arreola, you know? But Shelley Finkel said that he's not ready, he's still a prospect. And then, of course, he goes and defends his WBC title against the likes of Spilka, Duapa, And Chris Arreola, here you go, Chris Arreola. You see, Gerald Washington tried to make a fight with Tony Bellew even, right after Anthony Joshua beat Vladimir Klitschko. Tony Bellew, a cruiserweight, he tried to make a fight with him. Okay, Andre Wawrzak, as I said, and these are the kind of things that Wilder does, but yet Anthony Joshua's had an easier career. Well, Wilder's done everything, right? Of course. And of course, he goes on about how Anthony Joshua is afraid. He, he doesn't want to step up. He's scared of the Bronze Bomber, the most feared man in the heavyweight division. The most feared man in the heavyweight division who has avoided successfully every top athlete in the game. Avoided every single one of them, including Dillian Whyte. He's been offered multiple contracts for highest purses ever, but he keeps on saying no. Why? Because he's afraid. Yeah, he calls Anthony Joshua afraid, who has unified twice, hold 3 belts plus the IBO, plus he's a cash cow. Took on legends in and Hall of Famers for sure in Vladimir Klitschko. Undefeated fighters: Dominic Breazeale, Charles Martin, Dillian Whyte, Gary Cornish, Joseph Parker, and a couple of others, I believe. Now, of course, I don't have all the records in front of me. Everything is upstairs, locked in. So if I am mistaken on something, please forgive me on that one. But I'm pretty sure I'm right. So to say that Anthony Joshua is afraid, but look what he's done in half the time of what Wilder's done. And no, the landscape was no different. Wilder had every opportunity. He chose not to because he was afraid. He was a coward, is what it was. And of course, Wilder, even now, he's been saying for quite a while that he wants a body on his record. Is what, I mean, why would you come out and say, I want to kill somebody in the ring? And then he starts talking about how it's his alter ego of the Bronze Bomber. Talking about himself as a third person. I mean, what a complete moron. You know, I mean, that's kind of the thing that annoys me about David Haye is one of them. You know, he talks about David Haye as a third person. It's ridiculous, really. But, you know, he wants a body on his record. Well, how would he feel if he legitimately got a body on his record? Most people would feel gutted about it. But no, Wilder actually wants one. And it won't surprise me because he's been tampering with the wrong side of the law for quite some time. At some point, it won't surprise me if he ends up going to prison. It really wouldn't. You know, he wants a body on his record. If he can't get one in the ring, what's he going to do? Go out and get someone? He's already threatened to pull up on big baby Jarrell Miller and kill him out in the street. Why? Because it turns out that Jarrell Miller was once banging Wilder's current girl. So, yeah, see, so he wants to kill somebody. So again, that's mentally unstable. And again, keeping with the law, 2013, he strangled a woman. She was a model or a prostitute, whatever it was, and he ended up strangling her and ended up paying her some hush money. And that's all true. You can go look that up. 2013, Deontay Wilder did that. And of course, straight after he fought Gerald Washington in Alabama, Dominic Breazeale, who was on the undercard fight in Izzy Ugano, Deontay Wilder and his brother and about 20 or 30 other people started going after Dominic Breazeale and giving him punches and kicks and whatever, giving him digs in front of Dominic Breazeale's wife and child or children, not too sure. Now, the reasons for that, apparently Dominic Breazeale said something to Deontay Wilder's brother, but either way, it didn't warrant 20 or 30 people going there. Surely Wilder and Breazeale should have just had a dust-up out in the cobbles, right? Just one-on-one. Didn't need the whole entourage. So again, Deontay Wilder's sticking with the wrong side of the law. He's been caught on a couple of occasions now for possession of marijuana, okay? And he's tried to worm his way out of it, blaming other people who had it in his car. Yeah, it's in his system. He's been caught twice with it, and he's currently on parole with it all. I'm not too sure. Maybe that's one of the reasons why he couldn't come to the UK. Maybe he couldn't leave the US because of his parole. You know, he has to be in certain places on certain days. I mean, I'm not too sure. But either way, he's been dicing with the law. Now, you could argue that dope is not a serious thing, but either way, it's a fact. It's illegal. Okay, so therefore, he's been caught. He keeps on dicing with the law. And, you know, he keeps on using Anthony Joshua's name as well, yet never going through with it. You know, he's insulting Anthony Joshua. I want to fight Anthony Joshua. It's not about the money. It's about legacy, is what he's saying. And I want to knock out Anthony Joshua and become undisputed. I promise you, my fans. I love my fans and all this kind of stuff. All this kind of rhetoric crap that he keeps on saying. And the Wilder fans just keep on lapping it up. And the Wilder fan channels keep on repeating his complete garbage and making up rhetoric crap themselves. And the weak-minded believe them. It's unbelievable how a once sane human being can believe the rhetorical garbage that that these guys pour out when they just can't see logic and reason. I mean, I'm giving you facts here. This isn't hate. I'm giving you facts. They don't give you facts. They give you illogical stupidity is what they give you. So again, you know, he keeps on using Anthony Joshua's name. You know, he's supposed to fight Luis Ortiz, and he's not talking about Luis Ortiz. He's not talking about Bermane Stiverne previous to that. He's talking about Joshua all the time. He can't speak without talking about Joshua. So Deontay Wilder, what did you have for breakfast today? You know, Anthony Joshua, he's avoiding me, he's scared. You see, he can't answer in an interview without mentioning Joshua's name. He's using Joshua's profile, his name, because nobody was talking about Wilder before then. All his current fans and current fanboy channels have not been supporting Wilder, hence why he's not the A side right now. Hence why he's probably C or D side, to be fair. He's not a star even in his own country. Yeah, he wants to claim that he's pay-per-view and making $100 million for this fight. He's not bringing anything. He's a $2.1 million fighter. Everything else, Anthony Joshua is making up. It's as simple as that. So, you know, using Anthony Joshua's name all the time and begging, coming across as a beggar, really. Please, Joshua, give me a payday. Please, Joshua, talk about me. This is the man. You know, he even comes out with like little nursery rhymes, fee, fi, fum, fum, and all this kind of garbage, you know what I mean? He even messes it up. Absolutely ridiculous. And as I said, Wilder's never stepped up 40 fights. So how does he deserve a huge payday percentage? He doesn't. For me, I think Joshua is absolutely right. I'm going to pay you 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10 times more than what you've made in your last fight. How is that a low ball offer? Don't worry about what I'm making. Remember, it's about legacy, not about money. If you want to be undisputed, here's your offer. All you got to do is sign a contract. That's it. There's a rematch clause in there as well. Quite what the rematch is, don't know, don't really care. But there's a rematch clause in there should you beat Joshua. So again, you're entitled to make some more money than what you're making in the first fight. But first things first, you've got to do what Floyd Mayweather done against Oscar De La Hoya. Take the B-side and move forward. Forget percentage. You don't deserve percentage because of all these things that I've listed to you. You've been nothing but disrespectful to Joshua, to Eddie Hearn, to the UK fans. Joshua shouldn't give you nothing. Joshua should freeze you out because eventually you will lose your title. The Wolves are closing in. The likes of Dillian White and Gerald Miller and Dominic Brazil, all these guys are closing in on you and you will lose. In the next 10 fights, he talks about 50-0, 51-0. So in the next 10, 11 fights, he wouldn't even make that kind of money combined to what he would make with one fight with Anthony Joshua, let alone beating Anthony Joshua and the money he's going to make in a rematch. So it's a pretty simple deal, really, isn't it? If you're being offered any more than 10 million, 5 times your purse, you take it. If it's 12.5 million, 15 million, 18 million, 20 million, whatever it is, you take it. You seize the opportunity, you beat Joshua, and then you become somewhat of the A-side, right? But also, again, keeping with the percentage thing, yes, Parker was offered 33%. Why? Because Parker is pay-per-view in his own country. Parker sells out arenas in his own country. So there was a market for Joseph Parker. There's no market for Anthony Joshua. A few people on YouTube is not going to change that. Not going to change the fact. Yes, he may do, what, 1 million views on Showtime. That's not pay-per-view though, is it? Yes, you have to pay a monthly subscription, much like we do with Sky Sports, but we pay extra to watch Joshua, yet his numbers for pay-per-view are far bigger than what Deontay Wilder's numbers are for non-pay-per-view in the UK and across Europe, across the world. Wilder's not even close, not even a 5% close to Anthony Joshua. So to turn down this deal is absolute madness. And you as fans, it's your fault that he is being paid so poorly. He's got too many chefs in the kitchen. They're all spoiling the broth. He's got too many managers. He's got agents. He's got too many people speaking for him. And he's coming out on social media with complete rhetoric garbage and coming across as a real idiot. And his fans are not helping him. The fan channels have been harming him with the way that they're talking about Joshua and how they're defending every little thing that he does and making up stories for you guys to believe. So for me, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And of course, again, keeping with his fans ruining his career, even every other heavyweight out there, they throw under the bus. Even their own Americans, Dominic Brazil, they chastise Dominic Brazil because Brazil, he wants to fight with Wilder. What's wrong with him having a fight with Wilder? They chastise him because Dominic Brazil went to the police because Wilder and 30 people jumped him. Why shouldn't he go to the police? But yet they insult Brazil for that, like it's his fault. Okay, a snitch. Okay, fair enough. But still, you know, he's still an American. You know, he still tried to win a belt for America. He's a proud American, much like Jarrell Miller, undefeated. But people don't like him in America because he's a rival for Deontay Wilder. He calls Deontay Wilder for what he is. So Miller is a coon and all these kind of things that they come out with. It's absolutely disgraceful. So you fans are the reason why Wilder is being maybe treated the way that he is by Joshua right now. Personally, I don't think Joshua should give him a percentage. If he does, give him 20% at best. Say, okay, there you go, 20%. But ultimately, he has kind of offered him a percentage. If you really believe it's a $100 million fight, then give me 50 million and you get 50%. Pretty simple, really, isn't it? If you're not confident it's a $100 million fight, then take the money that I'm offering you. It's for your legacy. You said it's not about money, it's about legacy. You have an opportunity to not only become a multi-millionaire in one fight, make more money in one fight than what you can in the next 10, but yet you want to turn it down and play hardball. Anthony Joshua needs to move on, is my honest opinion. Drop your thoughts below. Sorry it went on for quite a while, but big up to you all if you're still with me at this point. So thank you very much, and I'll catch you on the next video. Click that thumbs up, subscribe.